So Jimmy Dore just released a clip today where Tulsi Gabbard was on his show a few days ago. They had a brief little interview, and he's chopped it up into different little segments and released clips of it. So we're going to be listening to the little snippet of audio from one of his videos today, where Tulsi goes a little more in depth on what her health care plan is and how it is in fact not like Pete Buttigieg's plan at all. Okay, so what Tulsi, and she hasn't released all the details yet onto her website, but what she's more or less calling her plan is a single payer plus. Okay, so let's take a listen to how this is all explained between her and Jimmy Dore, and then we'll discuss from there.
Since the last time you were on the show, you came out with your new single payer plus healthcare.
Yes, we are working on releasing the full and detailed plan, but have been talking a lot about this with people in the town hall meetings that we're having. And one thing that's really interesting, I did an interview earlier today with a local TV news station. They're saying, well, you're not going to be able to get this passed through Congress because, everybody there hates anything that is a single payer program. But we've been hearing very different things from people on the road. Every single town hall meeting we have, every house party we have Democrats, Republicans, independents, and libertarians all coming together both to listen, to show support, to recognize that we've got to stand united as Americans for our country. And hearing from that, there was a guy who came to a town hall in Iowa who talked about how he gets together with the same group of guys every single weekend for coffee and breakfast on a Sunday morning, and all of his friends voted for Trump. And all of his friends are supporting whether it's a Medicare for all or a single payer plus type program, because they're all very concerned about their health care and the ability to make sure that whether it's for themselves or their loved ones or their kids, some of whom may have pre-existing conditions or rare diseases, that they're not going to be able to afford the kinds of medicines and care that they need. So again, this is one of many issues where if you really expose the Washington attitude of self-serving politicians and the pay-to-play culture that big insurance and big pharma are contributing to, and actually just focus on how this is actually an issue that's bringing people together around one of the most basic essential needs that we have, then you see the opportunity to say, hey, healthcare should be about health care, not about a greedy for-profit driven system that actually ends up hurting people the most.
So it used to be that people were 100%, so 9 out of 10 Democrats, when polled a couple years ago, said they were for single-payer health care. And then even a majority of Trump voters were for single-payer health care. Then that really scared the hell out of them, right? Them being the lobbyists, the donor class, the big pharma health insurance.
Yeah.
And so they figured out, we got to start telling the pollsters to start asking this question in a way that scares the hell out of people away from Medicare for all.
Yeah.
So then they started to ask it this way. Hey, Bernie Sanders wants to take away all your health care.
Yeah.
He wants to make a private healthcare illegal and have the government run there. It's like people are like, holy shit, that seems radical, right? Even though that's not radical what he's proposing, but the way they're couching it makes people afraid, right? So now you see the numbers going down for people's approval of Medicare or single payer, but it's not actually. What they're just doing is responding to the scare tactics that are being used in the questioning. So what you seem to be supporting, and I just want to get clear. I know your plan isn't out yet, but people are saying, oh, Tulsi flip-flopped on Medicare for all. Now, you seem to be not wanting to outlaw private insurance, more like, say, what works in Australia.
That's
so
right.
Now I'm very familiar. I've been to Australia. I know how their system works. So you want to explain how I could help, too? Because I'm really good at this.
In a nutshell, it is making sure that through a single-payer plus plan, every single American would automatically be able to get the care that they need through this plan. If you also want to purchase a supplementary insurance plan, or you've got an employer-sponsored plan, or you have something else going on, you have the freedom to do so if you want. But that does not undermine or take away from every single person being able to get the quality care that every single American deserves.
And everybody pays in. So
Yes.
nobody gets to opt out. So the way it works in Australia, and they call their system Medicare,
Right.
is everybody pays in.
That's right.
But you can also then purchase. But when you pay in, you don't get to choose your doctor. But you get to choose your hospital. You get to go to a hospital. You get to get taken care of. But you might have to share a room, and you don't get to choose your doctor. Now, if you buy private insurance on top of that, you're allowed to then also pick your doctor and get a private room because you're paying more for that thing. So that's the way they run it there. And it seems everybody was really happy with their health care.
Yeah.
And they couldn't believe how we did it here in the United States. So that, to me, is 1,000% improvement. That certainly is still Medicare for all. It's just a Medicare for all. So the problem, it used to be if people kept private insurance, was that some people could opt out. You can't have that.
Yeah.
Everybody has to pay in.
Yeah.
That's how it works, right?
So that's very enlightening, actually, because a lot of people, myself included, thought she was going to be much more in line with a Pete Buttigieg type plan. Now, I've already read comments even on Jimmy Dore's video where there's an awful lot of people who are berating this and saying, no, it's still not right. We want Medicare for all. This is going to create a two-tiered system. And even Jimmy Dore later in his video went on to say, yes, that's a downside of this, is that it can create a two-tiered system. Now, with that being said, I'm no healthcare expert, but to me, the big argument that I heard about, like Pete Buttigieg's plan, which made perfect sense, is that when you do away with Bernie's duplicative provision, which allows private insurance companies to be still in existence and to compete against it, you're going to have a system to where the private companies are going to want all the rich and healthy people, pawning off all the poor and sick to the government. Therefore, by opting out, because the private insurance got the rich and the healthy, they're not spending money. They're still taking in a lot of money, and the government is taking in less money and paying out more for the sick, and it doesn't balance the risk and whatnot. Okay? So, that's the big thing I heard, was it's going to cause a collapse in the funding department, because it's going to be a lopsided scale, okay? But this system does not allow anyone to opt out. You must pay in, okay? And as a result, you pay your taxes, but then if you don't want what the government's offering, and there's some other plan out there that your employer is offering or whatever, you're allowed to keep it if you want. Now, again, when you create the two sides, I see the argument where it could complicate things to some degree. Obviously, if it's just a single payer, it's a single bill. The hospitals and everyone doesn't have to, go through the different chain of commands of getting bills to who. It's all just one place. And so for that makes absolute perfect sense to me. Okay. The other thing is that if you can't choose your doctor on this plan, what if certain, like the most doctors won't accept it now? All of a sudden, they'll only take people that can't afford the private insurance, and now you have to drive from wherever you live to Kalamazoo to find a doctor. That could get problematic as well. Okay, that could get problematic as well. So right now, I'm running through some of the issues that I still see with Tulsi's healthcare plan as opposed to the Medicare for all system. Okay, so those things are definitely still going to be problematic. Now, what are some of the benefits to what she's arguing? Well, realistically, okay, and Jimmy Dore made this in his video as well, you're now taking away the lobbyists' talking points of, oh, they're taking your health care away. They're taking your health care away. That you might get this plan, but you can't have private insurance, which, of course, even under Bernie's plan, you could if it was supplemental. You can't have anything that offers the same thing that the Medicare is going to offer you. It can only be something to add on top of Medicare. Okay, but you're taking that talking point away. It's gone. Okay, that is definitely going to help convince more and more people out there that this is much better, considering there are a lot of people on the right and a lot of Trump voters who are more in favor of a single-payer system as well. So that's benefit number one. Benefit number two, in all likelihood, this stands a much better chance at actually becoming law, realistically, if we're going to be completely honest here, than probably Medicare for All does. Okay? There are far too many people with a lot of money and a lot of TV time and a lot of influence that are railing against this Medicare for All system. And they're going to use those fear tactics that are going to work with a lot of the American public and try to convince them that this is a radical concept. You're only going to have one, healthcare program. You don't get competition. And there are a lot of people who believe that the old conservative ideology is still a valid thing we should go by. That is, we should have competition. Competition is what makes products better, and in a lot of cases it does. Okay? In the healthcare system, while a lot of us know that the federal government has a lot of times known to be wasteful, not exactly do the best math in the world, not manage money the best in the world, you have to then wonder, well, how are they going to handle this healthcare program? Okay? Are they going to manage it right? Is it going to be run right? Blah, 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 blah. That definitely is a concern. However, I argue this. At the end of the day, while people say that they may want the competition to avoid that issue of if we all get underneath the federal government and then they make a mess, we're all stuck dealing with it. And the federal government has the common sense of a pissant a lot of the times. So we don't really trust just having them as an option. But keep in mind, most of these other social programs out there, like Social Security, and I'll be mentioning that again in a few minutes. Social Security, for example, the wealthy people don't collect Social Security. After a certain dollar amount, you don't pay into Social Security anymore. And if you make over a certain amount, you don't draw Social Security. If you try to, you're going to get penalized. Okay? And so with that being said, here's the big key difference, okay? All these other social programs that people with a lot of money or power or influence don't use, they are the ones that the federal government tends to do the most damage to or misuse, mishandle, don't manage properly. Like Social Security, they dip their hands into the pot. Now, if take your health care, for example, and here's why I think the Medicare for All system would actually not have this issue of the mismanagement by the federal government. Because if all these people with all these money, including the politicians, mind you, because they should have to take the same thing, okay? If all these people with all the power and influence had to go through the same process, everyone had to go through the same thing, do you really think they're going to let this system go to pot and not make sure that it's ran properly? Oh, hell no. Okay? Absolutely not. They will make sure that it is ran as best as it possibly can. But once you create that two-tiered system, even if the funding isn't an issue, now they are going to go for their own little private plans over here, and then you're running serious risk that they just let mismanagement come to the Medicare that the average Joe's going to get. It's not going to be ran properly, funding may not make it, and then of course you have the backup issue, stuff not getting paid for, it could cause hospitals. That's where you're going to run into the federal government mucking this thing up like the federal government does with so much. Okay? Because a lot of them are just a bunch of incompetent jackasses. Pure and simple. Okay? So that's where I think Medicare for All is actually going to come out on the plus side, not the downside that a lot of the free market people who believe that we need more competition to drive the goods and services up as far as their efficiency and how good the products are. People that believe in that ideology, I see their argument for this system, especially when you're dealing with the federal government as one of their competitors. But when you have everyone under it, that means all these wealthy people are going to be in it too. That means all these politicians are going to be in it too. And when they have to deal with it, you know for sure they're going to be, coming after the people managing it with pitchforks and daggers if they are not running it properly. Because they don't want their crap messed with, rest assured. Okay? Now, I said I would bring up Social Security again. For all the people out there who say, well, how are you going to get this system passed? Because all these people paying into Social Security. Well, you're going to run into one problem there because everyone technically pays into Social Security up to that dollar amount. Beyond that dollar amount, they stop taking the taxes out on you. Okay? And again, the biggest solution to how we're going to fix Social Security's money issue is by just lifting that cap. Now, why does Social Security have a money issue? Well, obviously, the federal government has dipped into it all the way back to Lyndon Johnson, funding wars and everything else. Okay? So you might say that's a big reason why. However, even if the federal government were to put all of that money back, okay, and leave it in place where you can't draw it if you make over a certain dollar amount, but you have to pay into it, well, then that's going to fix the money problem. But why is there a money problem that a lot of people have argued? Well, life expectancy went longer than most people expected. X, Y, and Z. People just living longer, and it wasn't anticipated when Social Security was first created. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so there wasn't really enough money possibly being put into the pool here for everyone to get when they came time to retire. When it was first created, most people thought, because especially back in those days, you retired and then within just a few years, you were gone. Okay, but in nowadays, some people are living beyond up into their 90s, hundreds, so on and so forth. So that was a mathematical miscalculation when Social Security really came out in the first place. So by lifting that cap, you solve that problem. Okay, same thing with Tulsi's plan. If everyone's paying into it, but not everyone is using it, you're never going to have to worry about a funding problem. If anything, you're going to have a surplus on your hands because everyone's pulling in, but only a fraction are actually having to use from that pool to cover what they have done. So to me, that actually pays for itself. The whole argument, at least from what I'm seeing, how are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? To me, that actually comes out as a less costly method than the Bernie proposal. Now, again, while in practice, I think that Bernie's proposal is probably going to be the better of the two, and I've been explaining through this video why. I think that this one could be the more cost-effective. Now, what does that mean? I know it's a long shot. I'm certainly not going to put any eggs in the basket, but for all of those, we got to see the numbers, we got to see the figures, and we want the best, cost-effective, conservative option. You may be able to win over some people from the right with a plan like that because you're showing the money may not be spread so thin. It's just got to be ran just right to pay for everything. Okay, when you do this, you're going to show, no, we've got more than enough money. Because how many people are going to want to keep their own private plan and add on and blah, 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 blah. So when they do that, they're not going to be using this, but they're paying into it. Again, you got the double-edged sword where all the greedy people are, I don't want to pay into it if I can't use it. Well, you can use it. If you take something else, it's your choice. Well, if I want something else, I should have to pay in. Well, sorry. That's how it works. Use this if you don't want the other thing. No one's making you buy private. If you do that, it's your choice. So you're doing it at your own risk, at your own cost. You don't blame me for that fact. Okay? So, again, that's definitely going to take care of the whole money problem. Just the same way it would take care of Social Security's money problem if they lifted the cap on it. Okay? So, At the end of the day, you have to be the judge, but let's just be perfectly honest. Again, with the climate and the fear tactics and the scare tactics that they're using on Medicare for All, even though it is the better of the two in my opinion, and probably in many other people's opinion as well, what are the odds you will ever get it passed? I mean, if we could get it passed, wonderful. You won't hear a complaint from me. But, okay, at the same time, I just don't see that happening without a long, hard fight. And I don't know that even after the long, hard fight, you'll get it done. There's too many people in the pockets of these corporations. And if their backs are against the wall to possibly not even be in existence, oh, buddy, they'll spend every dime that they can. Why not? They have everything to gain from it and everything to lose if Medicare for All goes through. They have everything to gain by more or less keeping it. They may take a cut in their profits with Tulsi's system, of course. They have to be more price competitive for anybody to even want them. But they have everything to lose if Bernie's plan goes through. So for all these billions of dollars of profits they're raking in, you know they're going to come out swinging with everything they've got to fight Bernie's plan. And they're going to use any fear tactic possible. And they're going to lobby all the politicians to push those fear tactics. The people that they have in their pocket. That's going to make it really hard to pass. Tulsi's plan cuts them out at the knees with those fear tactics because it's not eliminating the private insurance. Even though private insurance are a bunch of scumbags, you've got to look at which one's going to be the more practical. Now, I hear a lot of people say, well, you don't compromise from the start. I see the point there. But I think there's nothing wrong with being more practical about what you could actually get through to and still provide a better option. And you have to look at it like this. There's a whole lot of people, lobbyists and politicians, who are not going to back this Medicare for All. They're not going to vote for it. They're not going to push for it. And I doubt in the next election we're going to have some big, massive revolution from the White House to the Senate to the, House of Representatives, where everyone's going to all of a sudden have this big majority that's for the people. So, in other words, what I'm getting at is if you don't have the massive takeover to push Medicare for All through and get it done in the next election, you're going to have to try to get something done. The American people want something to be done on healthcare, and they don't want it to take 20 more years, 10 more years. They really don't want even 4 more years. They want something done. Trump didn't get anything done, and they really wanted him to get something done. Obama gave us a piece of crap that didn't work like at all for a whole lot of people. Okay? And so with that being said, you've got to get something done. So that means you're going to have to try and find something you can get everyone behind by taking away the fear-mongering. If the people keep pushing for it because you've eliminated the fear-mongering, they're going to be pushing their politicians to vote for it too. Okay? So that to me is probably going to be the one that has the best chance of getting passed. And even if Medicare for All is the better option, what are you supposed to do? Just keep sitting around in a stalemate when you can't get things passed? You're just supposed to sit there while there's millions of Americans out there who still can't afford to go to the doctor. All you're going to do is keep telling them what plan we want, what plan we should have, what plan you're pushing for, that you can't get passed because of the corruption stalemate that's on Capitol Hill. That's not going to work for the American people. You telling me what you want to provide me doesn't fix my problem. So in other words, I get people's concern. I agree Medicare for All is the better of the two, but this is still far, far better than Obamacare, far better than what we have right now, and it eliminates some of the biggest concerns people had about where she stood, thinking she was more in line with the Buttigieg plan, because this shows she is not just like Pete Buttigieg, and she does not support Pete Buttigieg's plan. So while I still wish Tulsi would go for Medicare for All up front and then maybe move to a position like this and I compromise later on to get something done, because this is a pretty good system, really good compared, again, to what we have right now. Okay? But I wish she would go there, but even if not, it is a huge relief that we can all sit back and listen to her now and say, okay, at least we know you're not going to sell us out after the election with the Pete Buttigieg type plan that's doomed to fail and would be so costly that still no one could afford the buy-in process. So that is a huge relief, and I'm glad that Tulsi is at least on board with a program like this. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Independent Report. If you liked the video, please give us a thumbs up and like the video. Also, if you have any questions or comments that you'd like to ask, or topics you'd like us to cover, please drop a comment in the comment box below. And also, please subscribe to the channel, and if you do subscribe, ring that bell so you'll stay up to date when we drop new videos and you'll get notifications of it. And also, please support us on Patreon. Funds are going to be used to grow and improve this channel so we can reach more and more people and spread the message that the mainstream media doesn't want to tell people. We hope you'll tune in next time.